Welcome to Right Now Workshop Podcast. I'm your host, Kitty Bucholtz, and this is episode 20, Narrating Your Own Audiobook with author Mary Castillo. Let me start by saying thank you to all of you who've told your friends about the podcast. Sergio, I'm waving at you. If you told your friends who are now listening, or if you wrote a review on iTunes, let me know so I can give you a shout out on the show. You can find me over at podcast.rightnowworkshop.com. I'm going to let you get back to the interview now because it's a long one. I thought about apologizing for that because I try to keep the interviews to 30 to 40 minutes, but Mary had so many helpful things to say and I didn't want to edit anything out. I think you're going to love this episode. So let's get on with the show. Welcome. Today's guest is Mary Castillo. It is no wonder that Mary Castillo is a paranormal mystery and romance author. She grew up in a haunted house. You got to ask her about that. With her degree in history, she also loves to find and share untold histories, such as bootlegging women and no-nonsense World War II era nurses. Her heroine, Dory O, is the Wonder Woman version of a robbery detective who can also see ghosts. Mary not only writes paranormal mysteries, but narrates them into audiobooks as well. Welcome, Mary.
Hi, thank you.
I love your bio. That sounds so much fun.
Yeah, it was fun to write. I don't normally laugh out loud when I'm writing my own bio. It's usually like, oh, gosh.
Well, you know, I have a tendency, though, to go back and take a second look at books where the author's bio does make me laugh because I'm thinking, oh, I might like this. If the author's writing her bio so it makes me laugh, there's a good chance I'm going to like the book.
Yeah, because sometimes we forget that there's a person behind that book.
Right.
So, before you write that mean one-star review,
yeah,
nice.
That's right.
The human being who wrote that thing. That you hate.
That's right. Yeah. Now, so this human being grew up in a haunted house, and we just need to take a quick segue there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my parents bought their first house in 1973. My mom was pregnant with me. And this house, so this is back in 1973. They bought it for $19,000.
Oh my gosh.
And
is this California?
Yeah, in California, in San Diego.
Wow. Oh my.
And so they pull up to this place. And I mean, it actually been, the people who lived there had a little drug trade going on. So they were like bullet holes. And so them being like these 21-year-old kids, my mom will say that is true. She's like, we thought it was great. We're going to live here. And so they moved in and they just had a lot of weird experiences, like voices. They would hear, my dad would hear my mom calling him. She wouldn't be home. There was this mysterious woman who would park in front of the house, stare at the house. And then when they got brave enough, my mom's like, I'm pregnant and I'm walking up to this lady parked in front of my house. And the lady would always drive away. And so the longer they live there, then I show up and, I arrive and the incidents just got stranger and stranger. And so finally the neighbors said, well, the woman who's parking in front of your house, her sister lived there and her sister died in that house. And the whole story unfolded. Meanwhile, as I'm probably about 3 and my mom is now expecting my brother, and she'd find me in the closet talking to my invisible friend. I would make my mom set the dinner table for my invisible friend, who was this really nice lady. Her name was Mary Ann, and she has 3 kids. And I'm telling my mom all this stuff, and meanwhile, she knows who she's gotten the whole backstory, and she's thinking, oh my gosh,
And it's the real name of the lady, and she really had 3 kids?
Yes, she did.
Whoa.
And so then as, I grew up, that I didn't see my invisible friend anymore. And but my brother and I, we heard voices, we'd hear my parents calling us, and my parents were like on the phone or not at home. We had an incident where these guys broke into our house, and they ended up catching these guys because they go into all places. They go into a donut shop with bags of like a VCR and jewelry.
Oh my gosh.
The cops are like, really? And so they arrested them, and in court they said the devil lives in that house because when they were in my bedroom, which was the original master bedroom of the house, apparently the door started slamming, the windows started rattling. They thought it was an earthquake. So that was the last room that they were in, and they said, the devil's in this house. I don't know, you must be Satanists or something. And my mom was like, that was our ghost protecting us. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
so now I look back on that and I'm thinking, I don't live in a haunted house now, but I'm thinking, what a weird way to grow up.
Right.
So yeah, it was just kind of, I guess was normal to me. I mean, now I realize that it's not normal, but at the time it just was what it was.
Yeah, it was how you grew up.
Yeah. And so people ask me like, well, what is it like? Or were you scared? Wouldn't you go running off into the night? And the best way to describe it is like living it with some like really nosy shut-in aunt, who's always in your house. I mean, that's, opens your door and looks in your room. I mean, that's what it's like.
Oh man. Now, did you have sleepovers as a kid?
I did. And so of course I told all my friends and they all were terrified. So, and they all wanted to come back every time. I mean, it was like people were, when I'd bring home friends from college, they'd ask my mom, where's your ghost? Like as if we could take it out and show it to everybody. Like she's around, I guess. But as we got older, the incidents were less and less. There were moments of activity, and when she would open and close doors, turn lights on and off. Sometimes we'd see figures walk by the window, and it was like she was more like a guardian. It was not she was not a frightening person. I think she just felt like, she kind of had to watch over us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's what it was like.
Wow. So when did you start writing kind of paranormal and ghostly type stories and stuff? Or when did you start writing?
I started writing in 1994. This whole other story, I almost flunked out of college because I thought I was a pre-med, and I thought I'll be a doctor, make lots of money, retire, and then write books. But that didn't work out. So in 1994, I decided I want to be a writer. That's what I'm going to do. And my very first, I started out in screenwriting, but my very first book, which I started in 96, 97, was about a psychic. And and it went nowhere. It was one of those books. It was the very first book. So, I wanted to sound like, Isabel Allende with touches of Anne Rice. And I mean, I have the original manuscript, and I went through it the other day, and it was like, so it was a learning experience.
That's right.
And then I went to romance, and many years later, many manuscripts and rejection letters later, I wrote Hot Tomato, which was a romantic comedy. And so the paranormal elements kind of wormed their way into my writing. In the very first story, it's a story about her brother's wedding, and her grandmother makes mention of an uncle. So it's not her very first short story, the first story the character appeared in, has just a touch of paranormal in it, but it's mainly wacky chick lit comedy.
Yeah.
But that character always stuck with me. And then I went full, paranormal crazy in Switchcraft, when my two characters switch bodies.
Oh.
And so so slowly it just started to kind of work its way into my work. And then finally I just went full bore with Lost in the Light. Sorry, the first book for Dory.
Okay.
Because her character always stuck with me. And so it was supposed to be a kind of a paranormal chick lit. And at that time, my books weren't being optioned. It was the recession. And so I found myself, as many authors, well, what do we do? And so I just decided, well, nobody's expecting this book. I don't owe this book to anybody. I'll just write what I want. And so I went more the paranormal mystery, women's fiction, and had a ball. I mean, I loved it. And then when it was done, it was like, oh no, it can't be done. And so then I wrote the novella, which is Girl in the Mist. And then many years later, wrote the third book, Lost in Whispers. So I'm now working on book 4. I'm not going to let years pass by between books. So
awesome.
So I'm fully committed into the paranormal realm now.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? I don't think that I really thought about this before deciding. I mean, you and I have been friends for a long time, and I knew I wanted to talk to you about audiobooks, especially once that you told me that you were doing your own. But just as an aside, I'm like, we need to stay in better touch because I was driving in San Diego behind, 5 million cars, in stop and go traffic. And there was a bumper sticker on the car in front of me that just said abracadabra in white on a black background. And I don't think it was an advertisement for anything. It must have been an advertisement for something. I don't know. I figured it was a band or something, but I wasn't paying that much attention to the bumper sticker. And I thought it said, and I'm waiting until you're done in case you like spit tea, but I thought it said abracadaver. And all of a sudden I started laughing at myself and I'm like, abracadabra, that's so funny. And all of a sudden it was like, boom, it was like the Big Bang Theory of a story. Yeah. And I just knew exactly what the story was going to be about. And within like 2 stoplights, which is like 15 minutes and rush hour traffic.
Yeah, you can look at your phone in California traffic. You're not hurting anybody. If anything, you're keeping your mind calm so you don't go ballistic on the person in front of you.
That's right. That's right.
5 million people in front of you or whatever.
Yeah. So within like 2 stoplights, I had 3 titles and I knew what was going to happen and how it was going to happen. And I had an arc for the trilogy. I'm like, now how do I put this into my production schedule? Because I really want to write it. But when I've been telling a couple of other my writers, I haven't told that many people about it, except for now I've told the whole world, hey, everybody. But they were like, that's weird. Chick-lit ghost story. But now I'm like, wait a minute. I don't think that I really realized that Mary's could be sort of categorized, some of it.
Yeah.
In
absolutely.
that. I mean, you've been using the words chick-lit, so
yeah.
I love chick-lit.
I think that absolutely. Lost in Whispers, the Dory O series, it has moments of lightness in it. I don't think you can get. Some people can stay, not dreary, sorry, dramatic, through a whole book. I can't. I think that you need that comic relief, and so it is. I was actually at a book signing in National City. That's my hometown. That's where the books are set.
Oh, nice.
And so of course, it's all my family and my parents' friends are at this event. And it's like, thank God. It's just me in a room. There were a couple ladies who arrived and they had been following my books from the very beginning. Oh, wow. And I just got like, oh, bless you. And then, of course, my brother's all checking him out. He's single. And single fireman. And I'm like, you keep your hands to yourself. You leave my readers alone. And then they're checking him out. And I'm like, you leave my brother alone. He's my little brother. I know. It's like, stop. But anyway, they asked, they were like, when are you going to go back to chick-lit? And I'm like, well, I think that what I'm writing, at least as far as I'm concerned, can fit in either category. Yeah. Because, and plus I'm not, I wrote Hot Tamata in my late 20s. Yeah. And it's like, I'm not in my late 20s anymore. Like, life is different now. And and so but they seem like, yeah, we love these books. So oh my gosh. I just think sometimes, we have to grow up with our favorite authors. And I know I have. Nora Roberts is now writing kind of like a post-apocalyptic paranormal. Really? Yeah, her new series. And it's like, you go for it. She's written romance for like 40 years. So it's like, she probably needs a change, Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like in the music industry, the acts that were huge and popular for 5 or 10 years and then just kind of disappear. Right. Those are the people, and their fans are the people who are telling other bands who've been around now for 30 years, oh, you're selling out. No, just growing and changing with the times. That's right. It. Yeah. So, okay. So you've done, it sounds like you're a hybrid published author. Is that right? You've been published in traditional and self-published? Mm-hmm.
And for now, I'm very happy doing independent publishing because I was thinking about this, how with Hot Tamata, I sold that book in November of 2003. And it was pretty much, it really had to be copy edited and so it didn't publish until March of 2005. So about a year and a half. And I thought, God, that really is a long time. Now that I've done it, now that I've been in taking the experience of having been traditionally published. And I was lucky because my editor at HarperCollins was very open about the process. It wasn't like this big mystery. I mean, they really included me in it. So I got a real hands-on education. So when I got to that point I think it was in 2010, and it was Deborah Holland who gave an online class about independent publishing, because I was really in despair about, I wrote this weird gothic chick lit paranormal thing, and it's like I having lost my publisher declining my books, my agent moving on, and then my second agent moving on. It was like, hey, where's everybody going? Like, what's going on here? I really despaired of what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
So that was when I learned about self-publishing. It was like, the clouds parting and the angels are singing, and it's like, okay, I have a way forward. And so yeah, I'm very happy about independent publishing.
That's awesome.
I love it because I can do things on my own timeline.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And I was just thinking, this is so interesting. I didn't realize how many people, how many friends of mine that we all kind of started around the same time, because when I interviewed Tracy Reed, she and I were talking about how we really kind of got to know each other in Deborah Holland's class in 2010, which we were in with you. So,
really?
Yeah,
that blew my mind because I'm sorry, my dog is barking at the people next door.
Oh, that's right. You might as well make him famous. Tell us his name.
Well, it's Rocky the Pug, and he's busy right now. He will probably come over here to introduce himself, but he's got some business to do right now, and he's telling the neighbors to keep it down.
Excellent.
Yes, he takes his job very importantly. So, sorry, the class. Yeah, because right before I took that class, I had sat in on a panel with the agents. And these three women were reading proposals, and they were just so cruel. And like, so they thought they were so clever and so funny to tear down people's work. And I just thought, I don't want to work with this type of, I don't want to be in that environment. I don't want to work with these kind of people. And these are the gatekeepers. These are the people I have to get through to get to the next step, even though I had been published, because in a very short amount of time, as we now know, publishing is completely changed. And so when I came, when the last few times that we've had a publisher come to OCCRWA, they're pitching us.
Yeah,
which,
that's
you will
true.
remember when I was when I published Hot Tamata, it was the other way around, and it was you need to impress me.
Yeah.
Now they're telling us, well, we can do this for your book, we do that for your book, and it's like, wow, this is a totally different world.
Yeah.
So it is very empowering that that one can do it.
Yeah. Now, when I looked up your audiobooks, what it looks like, if I looked in all the right places, which for the most part, regarding discoverability, people are going to go to their one or two favorite places to get audiobooks or ebooks or print books or whatever. And if your books aren't there, then as far as that reader is concerned, the book doesn't exist. So I went to Amazon to see, what people find when they look up your name, and I see 2 audiobooks. So my first question is, does that mean that the traditional published books that you have out, that they either didn't buy the audio rights or just decided not to use them?
They do have the audiobook rights. And so, they have not decided to use them.
Okay.
And I've thought about, going through that process of maybe getting those rights back. And then I thought, I have other things that I'd like to use my time and my resources to focus on. So I've just kind of let them be where they are.
Okay.
And I have friends who are traditionally published. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay.
Finish.
Very quickly, that it is pretty standard that most traditional publishers keep the audiobook rights, because not all authors are crazy like me and are going to narrate an entire audiobook.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to some of my friends who are still in the realm of traditional publishing, they basically get a contract from an audiobook producer. They sign it. They don't. I'm so amazed at how blasé they are. They're like, I don't even read it, and I don't even hear the audiobook. And I'm thinking, really? Like, I guess I really am a do-it-yourselfer, because I want to make sure it's done well.
Yeah.
But for some people, they just have some people are very hands-on, and then others are like, yeah, do it. I'll take the money.
Yeah. So you're writing this book about this character that you love. You couldn't get her out of your head, so you wrote a book for her.
Yeah.
Then you didn't like that the book was over, so you kept on writing. So now it's a series. So at what point did you decide, okay, she needs an audiobook? And at what point did you decide, and I guess I'm going to be the one to read it?
Okay, so again, all things happen at OCC RWA.
Yeah.
People don't know that it's Orange County chapter of the Romance Writers of America, and it's here in Orange County. And it was jealousy that got the whole thing started.
Okay, that's good. Let's hear the story.
Yeah. So in 2015, I've come back to OCC after an absence. I had a child, and anyway, so I come back, and all. What would you say, almost like 80, maybe 80-90% are self-published and very successful. Very successfully self-published.
Yeah.
They've got like their whole they've got their whole like mini enterprise. So I'm hearing people talk about how they're getting their audiobooks produced, and I'm like, I want an audiobook. How come I don't have an audiobook? And then I read how much it costs, and I'm like, oh, that's why I don't have an audiobook.
Yeah.
I want an audiobook, darn it. And I come from a performing arts background. I went to performing arts middle school and high school, so I took drama classes, singing, dancing, plays, video production. And it's cool when you get to a certain part of your life, when you look back and you're like, oh, that's all those things finally kind of come together. And so I used all those skills. I knew I had those skills. And I thought, I'm going to do it myself. And I I did my research, got my mic. But there was a learning curve. It wasn't like I just jumped into it and started narrating it.
Right.
Because of course I have a character who's British, and so I am, from a girl who grew up in San Diego. I don't have any British friends, and I'd never grew up around. Although my neighbor was a British war bride, but anyway, that's another tale for another time. But
Yeah.
so all those little details. So it took about 2 months of learning, of having to narrate the first 5 chapters, I think 7 times.
Wow.
Because I'm learning the software, I'm figuring out my process, trying to decide, am I going to hire someone to do the British accent,
Yeah.
and practicing. And so so it was in 2016, I podcasted the audiobook. So every week I put it on SoundCloud, and, I think my mom and my husband and my best friend listened to it, and then slowly strangers started to listen to it. And I finally got smart and then embedded it in my website, so then I could look and see where are people getting it.
Right.
People in India are listening to it. People in Europe and Canada, Mexico, and it's like, wow, people are into it. And then I would get notes of usually you post on Thursday morning and it's not up yet, and it's like, I know, I'm trying to finish it, And so for 36 weeks, there's 36 chapters in the book, I did the podcast, and then put it all together and, created an audiobook. And when did I publish it? It's kind of like a all a blur. I published it in late 2016. I think it was in December. And the crazy thing is that while I was podcasting the audiobook, people were buying the book. All of a sudden I see this rise in sales, and they weren't just buying the ebook, they were buying the print book, which I thought, okay, you don't want it for free? I mean, all right. But it did a lot of things for me. It opened up a whole other, I loved it. I loved doing the whole thing. I really got into it, and, got into the British accent. And
so you taught yourself to speak in your character's accent?
I did. And in the shower, when I would be, at night when I'm talking to my family, and they're just like, okay. They knew what I was doing, so they knew I hadn't totally lost it. But the hardest thing, though, was narrating the voice of a man. That was the hardest part, because I would watch YouTube videos of the actors who inspired, particularly Gavin, Dory's love interest. And so I would watch him. I'd be staring at his mouth, and I noticed men, they use their mouth differently. They hold themselves differently. And so, I would videotape myself, and oh my gosh,
Oh my gosh.
But I really got into it. And So by the time I finished Lost in Whispers, I then went into Girl in the Mist, which thank God is a novella. And I just went right into those two characters. I mean, it was just like picking it up. So I'm now getting ready to narrate Lost in Whispers, which is 96,000 words. It's the longest book I've ever written. It's like, oh man, what was I thinking?
So how long do you think it might take you to narrate the entire book? It sounds like 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, because, okay. So podcasting is not enough. I'm going to do Facebook Live, and as I'm narrating each chapter. So
okay, I remember you said this, and I was like, "Stop! We must discuss." First of all, how, why? Tell us more. That is so interesting because I have to say, I don't want to necessarily copy you, but copying is the best flattery. And every time you have an idea about audio, I'm like, oh, I should try that.
Yes, you should. So that way I'm not the only dingling up there. Yeah. my thing.
Maybe we should try doing like some sort of challenge together.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
It's competitive. It's hard out there for a pimp, for an independent author too. And so it is getting more competitive. There are people, God bless them, they're out there, they're writing their books, they're producing their books. And I thought, I need to do something cool too. So I noticed that I follow James von Prague for research purposes because he's a psychic, and so I just kind of listen to his radio show and I follow him online, and he does Facebook Live videos like every day. Wow. And I noticed that a lot of the self-help authors, particularly on like Hay House, they are working it. Like they are not shy. They are on Facebook Live, Snapchat, Instagram, and I'm like, damn, I need to do that too. But not to that extent because I do have a family life and need to, I got to show up for my clients every now and then. Yeah. So I thought it'll be like podcasting, but it will be live. It'll be on video. I'm a little like wondering, why did I say this? Back. But I think what it will help me do what the podcast did, frankly, is make sure that I do it, on a weekly basis and get those chapters read and just keep me going because and all of what goes on. I mean, if you tell people you're going to be on Tuesdays at 11 o'clock, I'm going to be at Facebook Live, you better be there because unless you have a good reason that you're sick or something. Yeah. So it's to just, keep me honest. And then also another way to interact with my readers and, like hint, hint, go get the book,
All right. So a couple of things before we move on to the audiobook part. Okay. Are you going to broadcast on your Facebook profile page, your personal page, or are you going to go your profile, or are you going to do it on your author page, or where are you going to put it?
On my author page. Yeah.
Author page. Yeah. And so we're recording this in January of 2018. Do you have an idea of your start when you'll start it? Because I'm totally going to be there at whatever day and time you say.
I'm actually planning to start next Tuesday. So,
oh, wow.
So that'll be the 29th?
Something like that.
Yeah, it'll be January 29th. And what I like about Facebook Live is that the videos will be, people can find them. So if they want to start at chapter 1 and see me blundering through chapter 1, because it will be live, I won't be able to edit myself. And, oh God, I'm thinking about did I have any, okay, quickly, Girl in the Mist, I have very sensual love scenes.
Oh dear.
So, oh my gosh, recording that just in the privacy of my office was excruciating. Yeah. And I mean, it's so edited. I can hear the editing because I'm laughing. And I was like, oh my gosh, why did I write this? You're right. And this is maybe why I will not narrate my chick lit books because they are very sexy and
you just couldn't be able to do it with a straight face.
Yeah. It's like, a trained professional do that. Not me. So Lost in Whispers, I think, has one sexy scene, and it's not anything what I used to write. So, yeah, I may have to block out, not see myself.
Oh, you should totally do that. Put a blackout band over your face.
It looks like all 50 Shades, and people will be like, "What is she doing?"
That's awesome.
It's in her playroom, you know. Oh Lord, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do it. I'm not going to talk myself out of it.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? I think that I should get this recording up soon so that people can hear about it and get started when you're. So you have an audience. You need an audience.
Yeah.
So it's going to start the last Tuesday in January. Do you have a time yet?
11 o'clock.
11 a.m. Pacific.
Yep.
All right, which is 2 p.m. Eastern, just want everybody to know.
Okay.
All right. All right, this is exciting. Now, I want to move on to the how you created your own audiobooks part. So you can tell us in whatever order you want to tell us, but we'd like to know what software did you end up using, what mic did you end up buying, and do you want to tell us anything about things that you tried? And then just what worked, what didn't?
Okay. So I bought a Neewer mic set. It came with a little power pack and everything. And then I use Audacity software to record.
Which is free.
It's free. It's very, very powerful. It does a lot. And I learned how to use it watching YouTube videos. I mean, you could build a house watching YouTube videos. And that was how I learned, how to get, because of course you're going to pick up noise and feedback. So I had to learn all of that. And that's back in high school and in college, I took film and video production. So all those skills came into play. And so I don't want to scare anybody off if they're planning like, oh, I don't know if I could do this. You could record the audiobook and then you maybe hire an engineer to do all the mixing and editing, which will probably make it much faster. And I built a little box and I lined it with like an old pillow and some audio foam, and that's my recording studio. And it does a pretty decent job of keeping all the noise, the ambient noise. So I'm not doing so much of noise reduction to each track. And what's probably the most important thing, if you're going to do it yourself, if you're going to narrate it, is to read ahead. So that way you get you get really familiar with your own writing. It's great when you're writing a series because then you remember things that you'd forgotten, and then your certain things are going to catch you by surprise because you're going to be like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Right.
When you're recording and you're trying to be efficient, and also taking care of your voice to do a proper warm-up before you narrate. There were days when I was like, I don't need to do that. I just need to get to work. And those were the days when I'm stumbling and, I would skip words. But it just makes sense. If you're going to go work out, you would stretch and warm yourself up. You need to do the same thing for your voice and take care of it. And
now, of course, I want to know what all these things are. Is this something we would just Google?
Yeah, I have I found on YouTube voiceover warm-ups from vocal coaches and specifically for narrators. Many of these like tutorials are meant for singers. And so I would not do that. That's a whole, you're using a whole different set of skill there. And, but just searching for voiceover warm-up for narrators. And so it's like 3 or 5 minutes. It's not long.
Okay.
And that really just kind of gets you focused. And the other suggestion I have is not reading from paper, because paper makes sound when you turn the page. And so I'll be reading from my Kindle.
Right.
And blowing up the text, making it really big. And I find that I maybe will do 1 or 2 takes, but usually I can make it through a chapter without doing a second take, because I think my acting is more authentic. It's a little more spontaneous. Because when I narrated Lost in the Light, it had been like 5 years since I'd published it, so I hadn't read it. And I would get surprised in the scenes where I wanted to be surprised, and so I think that the performance reflected that, and
Negatively or positively?
Positively. I was really worried because there was one audiobook reviewer who said, I normally do not read books narrated by authors, but I heard your sample. You sounded pretty decent. She gave me one of my best reviews.
Wow.
So I thought, oh, thank God,
Yeah.
it paid off. And the third and kind of final piece of advice is to have beta listeners. Even though I podcast it, it was edited and then I put it up on podcast. There were mistakes, there were repeats, there was background noise that I hadn't caught. So beta listeners are really, 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 really important.
Okay.
And I learned my lesson because I first narrated Lost in the Light, and then realized I should have used beta listeners. And then with Girl in the Mist, I used beta listeners, and they were awesome because they also posted reviews. So I instantly had reviews when the book was up on Audible. So, and that was also a way I've been able to build my email list was, people volunteered and they got they listened to it. They told me what, where all the mistakes were. And they can be really, really supportive. So
now, did the beta listeners listen a chapter at a time or a section, or did you wait until you had done the whole book, and then if they found an error, you just went and re-recorded or re-edited that section?
Yeah, I had already finished the entire book, and so a lot of what they caught were if they could hear the page, turning. I was always careful to turn the page in a moment and a pause, so it was kind of smart in some places, and where they'd catch repetitions where I had, usually what I do when I'm recording, I just let it record. And so if I stumble, I'll pause like 2 or 3 seconds and then pick up where I left off. And so that way I don't have to keep restarting the recording.
Right.
So I would miss those. And so they would catch it and say, oh yeah, you stumble here. They would, so it was really just more of like just a tightening.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were just really, really sweet, because even though they had heard the version that had mistakes, they were still very generous in their reviews.
Wow. And then you took the files that you'd created in Audacity and you went through the process on ACX, which is the side, what am I trying to say? It's the author side, of Audible. Mm-hmm. And you just followed all their directions. And
yes, and they're wonderful to work with, because with Lost in the Light, I had made, I didn't have beta listeners. And so there were some mistakes, and people, called me and said, yeah, you've got some issues that you need to take care of. And so I edited all those issues, and Audible, ACX, they happily let me re-upload the book. They were wonderful. And then with Lost in Whispers, was it Girl in the Mist? No, it was Girl in the Mist. When I was producing Girl in the Mist, I added a sample chapter to the end of Lost in the Light. Mm-hmm. Just as you would in an ebook, you have a sample of the next book in the series, and they allowed it. They were more than happy to do it. And you will get a human being to answer your questions, and they're
nice.
really, really good people. So I like working with them, and it's not difficult. It's like uploading files to Dropbox is what you're doing.
Yeah. Wow. This sounds so fun, I have to say. I think it just sounds like a great time.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Oh,
now be doing it live.
Live. Okay, so tell us a little bit more. Okay, so I have one other question, then let's go back to, I want to know more about what you're going to do at the live. So, so you gave us some tips, which is awesome. You told us where you took the files, what you used, making sure you have beta readers. Were there any other mistakes or things that you learned along the way that you're like, oh, I wish I had known that earlier, or things that you learned from other narrators? Or it sounds like you learned a lot from YouTube. I don't know if you had any other friends who were doing it.
No, and plus I listen to audiobooks, and that really helps to listen, not just to the performance. It is hard because some of them are very good. So you could try, like, oh, darn it, I'm listening to the story. I need to be listening to how the book works. And right. So when you can listen for that, the pauses, how much time between chapters, it's usually 2 seconds. And so it's those little details. So I really recommend that if you are planning to narrate your own book, listen to the books in your genre and maybe even throw in a few that are not in your genre to see if there are ways that people are doing things that you might want to incorporate.
Right.
I have, a music lead in, because I was listening to the audiobook version of The Secrets of Meditation by David G. And it has this beautiful music that leads into it. And he has this amazing voice. It's very dramatic, and it just makes chills go up your arms. And I thought, oh, I want to do that too.
Yeah.
So I found royalty-free music and made sure that I could put it on an audiobook. And so and that was also on the podcast. That was the lead-in music for every chapter.
Ah.
Same lead-in and the same, with a podcast, every episode is its own thing. So I don't, people sometimes, drop in at chapter 10. So it'd have the lead in, the title, and then, we'd go into the chapter. Then I had to edit all that out when I was in the audiobook.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm. Now, is the podcast still up?
No, I took it down. And, because I just thought, now you can buy the audiobook. After all that work, you can buy the audiobook, right? You had your chance.
That's right.
So the sample chapters 1 and 2, I think, are up. But
and that would be probably at your website?
Mm-hmm. It's on my website, and it's also still on SoundCloud.
Okay.
And it's the other thing I learned was, because I used SoundCloud in an audiobook, those are some lengthy files. You will probably have to purchase. I had to purchase a hosting plan with SoundCloud. Now that I know differently, I have a WordPress site is my main website. I now know that I can put audio files on my WordPress site. So if I were to podcast again that way, then I would probably put the audio files on my WordPress site rather than, getting a hosting plan. Although, you could do both, because with SoundCloud, I was getting people that I normally wouldn't have found. How would they have known unless they were following my website or following me on social media? So I found a whole new group of readers. And so even though the podcast was free, I thought, is anybody going to buy it? And they did.
Right.
They did. I was like, wow, they listened to it and now they bought it. Like, cool. So that was exciting.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So Facebook Live.
Yes.
Are you going to pause and restart your sentence if you stumble? And is this going to be sort of the same as your final recording that you'll edit, but is this the recording that you're going to do?
Yeah, it's the recording. So yeah, if I make blunders or roll my eyes or the dog starts barking, it'll be like story time.
Yeah.
When your teacher's in the front of the class and turns the lights down, and I love story time. Story time. Maybe I can walk in and change my sweater and my shoes.
That'd be awesome.
That would be so awesome.
You can tell us about how we should be better people when you put on your red sweater, your red cardigan, and button it down.
Oh my gosh! I gotta go find a red sweater now.
Now I want to go watch. What is that, Mr. Rogers? I just want to go watch Mr. Rogers now. Okay, so then I'm guessing here. So really, this is a question. So are you going to set up your soundproofed audio box and you'll be speaking into it, but you'll have your phone here recording you recording?
Yeah, that's the plan.
I cannot wait to watch this.
Oh, it's gonna be crazy. Yeah, there might be a retake afterwards,
Yeah.
But I'm just going to do it live. And I was thinking about using my laptop for Facebook and using my phone for Instagram Live. But we'll see if we can pull this off, because that might be way too much. It might be too much Mary. And there is such a thing as too much Mary.
I don't know. When you think about it, the way you put together that podcast, it ended up being a ginormous marketing opportunity for you. You'd be marketing to two pretty different markets. People who are the kind of people who are going to watch something live on Instagram are real Instagrammers. They may not necessarily be on Facebook as much, and vice versa. I know that Facebook bought Instagram, but still, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the same audience. I don't know. You have a marketing company now yourself. So when you say You can't have too much Mary. Are you joking around, or do you think you can do too much marketing, put yourself out there too much?
No.
Because I was like, I'm going to take your advice, whatever you say. So I just wanted to know.
Yeah, because I do share Facebook and Instagram followers. Some of them are on both, my family and friends.
Yeah.
They might think it's too much.
Yeah.
But and I do have a different Instagram following because and I love Bookstagram. They call them Bookstagrammers, and they're really amazing because they're typically at least the ones that actually message me and communicate with me are in their early 20s. They're in college or just coming out of college, and they've taken their passion of books and turned it into this mini social media empire. And so I'm learning from them. I'm thinking, damn, you're smart. I should be doing what you're doing. And so they have triple the followers I have. And so they've really kind of inspired this whole Facebook Live, Instagram Live idea of mine.
Wow.
Because they, if there's one thing I've learned having in the, I don't know how 20 years I've been writing, is that writers, artists, we're so self-conscious about overselling.
Yeah.
And I've realized, no, you've got to be if you don't believe in your work and your readers think that maybe you're kind of wishy-washy about it, then there is that perception of, well, then why should I spend any time on you? Because I don't think it's very good. I mean, I see people, there's an author I love, and I wanted to direct message her on Twitter because she posted this beautiful picture of her book and tagged her publisher and all these great hashtags, but there's no link to the book. And it's
no.
For real? Like, honey, come on. That's like, social media 101.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I refrained. It
was probably a horrible mistake. I mean, I would think that, I can't imagine that could be anything other than, oh my gosh, brain fart.
Right, yeah. And so, and then I saw in the comments, on Twitter now, you can see people's comments, and people were like, where do I get it? Like, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
So, we sometimes have to get out of our own way and just, be authentic. And we're not doing this for free, So, it takes time and it takes effort, it takes money, and this is also a business. And so I think it's I'm sure that my mother will be like, I do not need to watch you on Facebook and Instagram. So
that's right. But your mother already has your book, so she's not really part of your target audience in that way.
Yeah. No, she's more worried of like, okay, what character did she base me on?
Right. I've been joking for years.
Secret is she revealing in this book?
I've been joking for years that I need to wait for more of my family members to die before I can write all the other stories in my head.
Yeah. But what's funny is they never guess right. And I've said this in front of them. They're like, what, really? I always think there's somebody else, and I'm like, yeah, that's you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, Mary, this has been so interesting, so fun. Yeah. And I thank you so much for sharing all this information.
Yeah, well, why not? I learned from my mistakes, please. And don't let me be the only one on Facebook doing this.
Yeah. If you don't mind being flattered by being copied, then I am totally going to copy and flatter.
Yeah. No, well, it's like our chapter's motto, OCCRW's motto is one hand reaching forward, one hand reaching back, in an ever something chain of love and peace or something,
I can't remember the end part. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what it's all about. And, authors who are, successful, I've, lifted their ideas and made them my own. Not their story ideas.
Sure.
The marketing ideas. And what's also just really cool about the way that publishing has changed is that there's so much transparency And
Yeah.
I mean, back in when I went to my first RWA conference as a published author, it was like the Dr. Seuss story, The Sneetches, where some of us had the stars on our bellies and others didn't, and then
Yeah.
we're all like running around trying to get stars on our bellies and no stars. I mean, it was like there was a little bit of that going on,
Yeah.
and and everybody told you, like, don't tell people what your contract is about. Don't tell them what they paid you.
Yeah.
How do we know? Because when I later, as I got more experience, I realized, oh, that contract really wasn't so great. If I had talked, when I talked to somebody who I could trust and someone who was like, oh, honey, come on, why'd you sign that?
Yeah.
They were going to publish my first book and make me famous, you know?
That's right. That's right.
You were the first person out of hundreds of people who said no, who finally said yes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that has changed, and now we have information and we can all help each other out.
Yeah. And that's what I want the Right Now Workshop podcast to be, is positive, upbeat people sharing the information that they have, because it doesn't do them any harm for other people to know what they've learned. And like you said, learning from other people's mistakes is a great way to move forward. And there's no reason to think that, if I learned something from you today, you might not learn something from me tomorrow. And why not share and help each other?
Right. Yeah.
There's the thing that I love most about books and the book industry and music and film, and aside from the people who are like, we really shouldn't spend all of our time indoors, staring at screens. Well, okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying about that. If there was some way I could run a half marathon while reading a book, I guess I could listen to a book, but I'm afraid I would trip.
For, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Someone like me, though, I would trip. I would be like, oh my gosh, and then I would fall on my face. But, but the great thing about books and music and entertainment and stuff like that is that there really isn't any place where now we have too much more than can be consumed. It's not like hours in a day. There really are only 24. We can't force 25 into them. But I mean, books, you can just read more books, and you can listen to more books, and you can listen to more podcasts, and you can always learn something new. I love places where I can learn something new, even if it's something I'll never use. Like there's a subdivision being built across the backyard from my friend's house where I'm at right now. And it's just funny because I will probably never use anything that I'm seeing, but I'm like, oh, I didn't know that you put that in first and then you did that. But, it's just fun to learn things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we're seeing in our world that the importance of information. I mean, everybody's terrified that, people are going to stop reading because they have social media. Well, you have to be able to read a post. Yeah. And if you don't want to be made fun of, you better learn how to write. I mean, at least spell the basic words correctly and use proper grammar. It's like, for God's sake, man, get Grammarly. I mean, Grammarly, for people who haven't heard of it, it's an app that you can embed in your browser. And I think you can embed it in your Word and stuff. And it's a little more intuitive, and so it edits you as you move along and prevents typos. And so I use it for email because I'm the kind of person that's all blah, 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 and then I realize I wrote something pornographic, I mean, Word, it's like, whoa, wait, hold on. So Grammarly is really, it's great, especially when you're on social media, and because you don't always have spell check on social media, and
right,
that can help you.
Yeah, I'll put a link to it in the show notes so that if people haven't heard of it, they know where to find it.
Yeah.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, this was fun. I feel like I'm not alone.
That's right. That's right. Well, hopefully we'll have a whole lot more new followers coming up over the next few months as you Facebook Live your new audiobook.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And yeah, I'm at that age now where I'm just kind of over looking foolish, and yet I'm watching my 12-year-old go into that age where, Mom, people are watching, and it's like, oh, honey, believe me, they don't care.
Yeah.
They're all in their own head thinking that, is my butt too big,
That's right. That's right.
Don't worry about it.
I was listening to Mark Dawson's Self-Publishing Formula podcast when I was running yesterday, and it was the episode on bots, and they made this joke about how at one point somebody had suggested that the title for the show should be, "Does this make my bot look too big?"
Yeah.
I just thought that was great.
Yeah. I know. I need to start getting into listening to podcasts because, the thing about when you're writing all the time is that you feel, a little isolated. And so podcasts like yours kind of, you have a community there, or at least there are people as weird as you are out there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, I know mine for sure, Mark Dawson's for sure. I have a Facebook group where people can just like come and chat about all the things that they're learning and hearing and stuff. And, I have an encouraging words segment on Sunday just because we spend so much of our time alone, second guessing and third guessing ourselves. And I think about all the times when I've been like, thank goodness someone told me, oh yeah, that everybody feels that way. I'm like, really? Oh, phew.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I got that email from my publisher saying, no, we're not optioning her next book because they're not selling the way they are. I mean, it was devastating. I mean, it was, I'm not a crier, but man, that was my life dream. And it's like, but it just started and now it's gone. And so I think if I could now I know, like there's a safe place for me to share that, that I would not have had to gone through it alone.
Yeah.
And, had passive aggressive angry posts on Blogger and stuff,
Right.
Now I'm removed. I've been, I'm dealt with it. I'm not angry at anybody anymore. It's all good. But I think that we're more transparent is it can help a lot of us, because I think at RWA there was like this great workshop, a panel about depression. And
that's right.
I mean, I'm trying to remember who was on.
It was a doctor who put on the initial presentation at RWA National 2 years ago. It was a San Diego conference.
Right. And I mean, people, it was like Oprah, they're like, I'm in the same boat. I'm not alone. They're hugging each other. And it was really a cool thing because, I think the more open we are about these issues, then people who are really in a dark place, they know that there are people they can turn to.
Yeah.
Hopefully they remember that.
But
I mean, I think that if we can support each other and be open and, not be all crappy with one another, we'll be better for it.
That's right. See, and I just love hanging around positive people like you. And I'm sure that the listeners are going to want to follow you too. So tell us where are all the places where you hang out. So website, social media.
Yeah, my website is marycastillo.com. And so if you want to follow me I'm mainly on Facebook. So I'm more active on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm on Twitter. Of course, I don't remember any of my handles, so just go to my website. You'll see the icons.
Okay.
You want to follow me on BookBub? I mean, I think I'm my only follower on BookBub.
Yeah, I was so excited when I got up into double digits. I'm like, someone I don't know must have followed me because now I'm up to 10.
Yeah, and then I occasionally remember to post on Goodreads.
Awesome.
So, yeah, but I hope that people will also consider joining a professional group like RW, or what is it? Not really a professional group, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think that is what it's called, a professional. I think that there's another word in there, professional something or other group.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it has to do with the profession.
Yeah, and what's great is that we're so lucky. We have OCC, and then you have online chapters, and
and then there's mystery writers and science fiction writers and. A whole bunch of genre groups.
Yeah, RWA is the best.
It is really good. Yeah. Even if you don't write romance, I've gotten my husband to come to some things because I'm like, listen, it doesn't matter what genre you write. If you need to learn how to write better characters or create more interesting plots or whatever, it doesn't matter. So just come. It's really good information.
Right. Yes. We like men to attend. It's okay.
Yes. And besides, you can be the one man in the room, and what man doesn't like that?
I always look slightly terrified.
My husband goes back and forth between thinking, this is going to be awesome, and wow, why did I let myself get talked into this? So.
Right, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're going to have to bring you back on for a folloup and tell us what happened.
I survived Facebook Live, right?
That's right.
Thinking, I don't know. Everyone else was doing it.
That's right. Oh, thank you so much, Mary.
Yes, it was fun. Thank you again.